Tonight, motion defeated. The MLA for Peace River North looks to repeal DRIPA. Moving forward, the city gets ready to pump water from the Peace River, and big investment. An MRA announced for Dawson Creek's new hospital. Well, good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin with the MLA for Peace River North calling for the provincial government to repeal the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. Jordan Keeley says DRIPA has become one of the most dividing and polarizing issues the province has seen in decades.
My brother has 4 children, 2 stepchildren are First Nations and 2 biological children. All 4 he loves equally. As his children grow up, 2 will receive benefits the other 2 will never qualify for. Education supports, job opportunities, extended health coverage, housing programs, and hunting and fishing rights. These children live in the same house, raised by the same parents, but the government will treat them vastly different. How is he supposed to explain to his children why they're treated so very differently?
The motion to repeal DRIPA, however, was defeated in the legislature with 48 MLAs voting against it to 43 in favor. DRIPA was passed into law back in 2019. It builds on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and provides the provincial framework for reconciliation. Keeley says reconciliation has been twisted into something that it was never meant to be. He says it was supposed to bring people together, nations and non-nations alike, but DRIPA has become a wedge. Keeley puts the blame squarely on the NDP government for what he calls a growing division, saying people are losing their patience. Well, the city of Dawson Creek moving forward with its short-term emergency plan to address the ongoing drought affecting the city's water supply. The city will begin to transfer water over land from the Peace River to its reservoir using temporary hoses along highway corridors. This project is supported by the province and it prepares the city in case the Kiskatinaw River freezes this winter. With the recent snowfall, river flows have improved. The city says it allows them to meet the daily water usage for now, but the Kiskatinaw has already begun to freeze. Pumping operations are expected to begin at the start of next year. The new hospital in Dawson Creek is expected to open in the spring of 2027, but today the Dawson Creek and District Hospital Foundation announcing the Clear Picture campaign aiming to bring an MRI to the new facility. The foundation looking to raise $3 million as ARC Resources Limited stepping in as the lead donor.
Team, let's reveal the amount in 3, 2, 1. We are proud to announce a $1.5 million commitment covering half of the campaign's total goal.
The magnetic resonance imaging machine was not included in the new hospital's initial design, but the foundation says it'll provide faster treatment decisions, reduce travel for patients, and care that meets the needs of the South Peace. It says the addition of an MRI is an investment that'll serve patients for decades to come. The chief of staff for the hospital says an MRI will also help attract and retain healthcare professionals to the region. He says MRIs are currently only available out of town and that it can be the difference between life and death. Northern Health also committing $4 million to help build the MRI suite, and it'll also provide $1.5 million annually for staffing and maintenance. The Doig River First Nation hosting a court conference in Dawson Creek this week. It's called the Walking the Path of Justice. The national gathering is dedicated to advancing Indigenous law, restorative justice, and to finding community-driven solutions to Canada's justice crisis. The conference runs until Friday. Organizers say the punitive system that have failed Indigenous communities needs to be challenged, and they add solutions need to be grounded in restoration, accountability, and healing. Well, the province of BC announcing a brand new online measure to help accelerate construction of affordable housing. Digitally Accelerated Standard Housing, or DASH for short. It's a software design platform that gives developers and nonprofit organizations the ability to construct buildings more quickly and at a lower cost. The modern method of construction is touted as an end-to-end solution. It supports the entire building process from design and zoning review all the way to construction. The online process uses an industrialized building approach centered around standardized design funded by the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation's Housing Supply Challenge. The time and money saving platform promises to be open source with no user access fees. Now, the BC legislature has narrowly passed a confidence bill on the North Coast transmission line. The deciding vote was cast by the Speaker of the legislature. Premier David Eby had staked his new Democratic government on this bill. The planned $6 billion power line will run between Prince George and Terrace. It passed 47 to 46 with the help of Speaker Raj Shuman. All NDP legislative members voted in favor of the bill, while all opposition Conservatives, 2 Greens, and 3 Independents voted against. The bill 4 is now waiting final approval by the Lieutenant Governor. It appears Ottawa is getting closer to a deal on a new pipeline project to British Columbia's north coast. The province of BC opposes that project, but it does say it supports a move to maximize capacity in the Trans Mountain expansion. Tyson Fedor reports.
Pipeline politics are intensifying between Alberta, BC, and Ottawa.
Canada is an energy superpower, doing that responsibly, sustainably.
BC has now announced support for maximizing capacity in the Trans Mountain pipeline, adding about 360,000 barrels of oil per day. Currently, it's operating at around 85%. Trans Mountain CEO in August says Ottawa should focus on capacity before new projects.
Optimize the kit that you have, which you can do in steps over time, and then add capacity as it's needed. And then you have time to evaluate the bigger issue, which is, do you need another pipeline somewhere?
Adding more capacity would include more pump stations and looping pipes to increase oil flow.
BC is essentially saying that Alberta should be able to get its oil to market. BC benefits if we can, dredge the Second Narrows Bridge. That allows for other ships, other types of ships to make it, into that harbor.
However, Premier David Eby continues to oppose any pipeline project through northern BC ending on the BC North Coast, which does not have a private proponent.
There's no route. There's a tanker ban that BC strongly supports. The project does not make economic sense. There are alternative projects that make more sense for Canada and for Alberta.
And for a project to the coast to be approved, that federal oil tanker ban would have to be lifted.
We're doing the technicals on a new pipeline to the northwest BC coast. We have a potential to also do something similar to Churchill.
Alberta and Ottawa are expected to sign a memorandum of understanding that could include scrapping the planned emissions cap and stronger industrial carbon pricing.
I would be surprised if the MOU gives any kind of certainty to a North Coast pipeline.
Premier Danielle Smith remains hopeful Alberta can add more oil supply to the market.
What we're seeing is that there's a change in the public dialogue about the need for oil and natural gas.
Tyson Fedor, CTV News, Calgary.
And a proposed referendum question on whether Alberta should leave Canada is now before the courts. The Alberta Prosperity Project brought its referendum question about separatism forward in July. According to the Alberta's Citizen Initiative Act, proposed questions must respect the Constitution Act. Alberta's chief electoral officer referred the group's questions to the courts to decide if it should be allowed, but those who support the bill say that hearing was an unnecessary delay.
It's not legally binding, on the rest of the country. It doesn't automatically affect separation. It leads to the government of Alberta being able to seek those amendments with the rest of the partners in Confederation. But it doesn't immediately cause anything to happen.
If the question is approved, the group would then have 4 months to collect 177,000 signatures. We're learning more about sweeping new legislation that could change healthcare delivery in Alberta. The provincial government will soon allow some healthcare professionals to work in both the public and private systems simultaneously. It's all in an effort to cut down wait times, but critics believe it could flip the entire system on its head. Tim Brooke explains.
In a social media video, the province is shedding some light on its new healthcare plans.
We're calling it the dual practice surgery model, and here's how it will work.
Surgeons will soon be allowed to offer elective procedures paid for by patients or their insurance after they commit to a minimum number of publicly funded surgeries per year.
A surgeon could choose to perform publicly funded surgeries during regular business hours, while performing private surgeries after regular business hours or on weekends.
The plan is aimed at cutting high surgery wait times, a stat that currently leaves many far beyond safe thresholds.
This is another avenue where medical professionals and Albertans can connect and perhaps do additional surgeries that are currently done out of province.
But it won't just be surgery. Alberta's Minister of Hospital and Surgical Health Services says there are plans to broaden out the model to allow other health professionals a chance to mix public and private care. He wouldn't say what healthcare providers will be impacted.
They did not campaign on this. They do not have a mandate. Call an election.
That's right.
Some health professionals already work outside of the public stream, but the things they do, cosmetic surgeries, for example, are not covered by public insurance. Experts are convinced these changes will only further incentivize private practice.
If we look at the evidence of other jurisdictions, the public system has suffered where the private system has been able to flourish. And to the extent that it hasn't, it's been because of extensive government regulations to try to manage that.
And the market will no doubt also dictate higher private costs for those who can afford to skip the public line.
It will create a grossly inequitable healthcare situation, and we're all very, very worried about it.
The legislation will be introduced this session. Tim Brooke, CTV News, Calgary.
Well, some Canadians are facing some sobering choices these days. Food insecurity has reached a record high in this country as grocery prices climb. CTV's John Vanavelli-Rao on what people are doing as the cost of food is taking a bite out of the budget of many Canadians.
When it comes to attitudes towards food prices, the survey found they remain a top expense pressure for households.
My experience is they've been going up, 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 up.
The report finding many Canadians are increasingly challenged by persistent food inflation, and it's been changing how they shop, cook, and eat in order to cope.
Canadians are adopting frugal habits, like switching brands, looking for coupons, discounts when they're buying products.
The survey, in fact, finding almost half of the 3,000 respondents are seeking out more sales and discounts. Nearly a quarter are using more coupons and shopping at cheaper stores as they try to make ends meet.
But yeah, you can find deals and sales all the time.
With more than a quarter reporting they struggle to afford food, up from nearly 23% a year ago. Food banks have reported a huge surge in the number of families seeking help.
Nice to get it out there, like this is so good that people are talking about it.
Karina Roberts is a single mom with 3 boys who says she may need to start going to a food bank every 2 weeks.
They are helpful, but I mean, then again, sometimes they don't have everything either. And it's a lot of canned stuff, and that's great. It's awesome that there's that help, but there's not a lot of fresh. There's not a lot of meat. There's not a lot of fruit.
The survey found many Canadians are prioritizing eating at home to manage costs. And on average, respondents say they now pay $515 a month for household food, compared to under $500 in the spring, which is a modest increase. On that front, many do overestimate the rate of food inflation this year. Almost 1 in 3 believe prices have gone up more than 10% over the last year, nearly triple the actual amount. And while affordability is still a major issue, the survey also finding that Canadians are cautiously optimistic that food costs may somewhat stabilize in 2026. John Vanavelli-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Abu Dhabi, where he signed an investment protection agreement with the United Arab Emirates. The Prime Minister is also launching talks for a full trade deal alongside the President of UAE. The talks are aimed at an eventual comprehensive economic partnership agreement. Carney also toured the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, which he described as an inspiring way of showcasing materials and knowledge from around the world. Carney's visit comes a month after the two countries signed an agreement to boost collaboration on artificial intelligence and data systems. With the U.S. President's signature last night, the Epstein Transparency Act is now law. It'll compel the Justice Department to hand over the files it has on the late convicted sex offender within 30 days. But even as the clock ticks, legal experts are warning there may be a way for the Trump administration to withhold some information. Joy Melvin explains from Washington.
It's the moment many of the survivors and their families had been fighting for. Within 30 days from now, the Justice Department must release the files from their investigation into the late convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein.
My sister couldn't name those names simply because it would put her life at risk. It would put her family's life at risk. These people could sue you into homelessness. They're so powerful.
President Donald Trump, who was friends with Epstein for more than a decade, had resisted releasing the records, reversing course at the last minute, and still calling it a hoax he claims distracts from his achievements. So how much could Trump's Justice Department release? Already there's a large loophole. The law says information could be withheld that would jeopardize an active federal investigation or prosecution.
Even though they had previously said there's nothing more to investigate here, I believe precisely in order to try to shield information, they have opened a new investigation, which is on its face politically tinged, going after only Democrats.
President Trump just ordered new investigations into prominent Democrats like former President Bill Clinton and former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, who stepped back from his teaching position at Harvard as the university investigates his ties to Epstein.
Any tactic to delay this process is another smoke and mirror from this administration, and the American people have to be watchful of how they implement this bill.
Documents that could shine a light on Epstein's crimes include flight logs, travel records, investigations, plea agreements, and financial entities tied to Epstein's child sex trafficking ring. Joy Malvin, CTV News, Washington.
All right, do stay tuned. Noah will be right back after the break with weather.